started with this, the open section of the delivery board meeting for this month. Thanks to all those who are joining us. Just as a quick recap, I'll just let everyone know some of the areas that we've covered in the closed section, which obviously details can't be put in the public domain for various reasons. We've gone over the crime figures, which has some restricted details in that. We've also gone over some of the stop and search reports for some of those to be in the public domain. The chief constable has been able to raise give us an update on areas that he has some concerns about. We've been able to speak about the forces culture piece and give us an update on the force inclusion and equality commitment, as well as the well-being and welfare update within the force. We've also gone over some of the budget and capital program for the coming financial years, and also gone over some of the risks and observations around the collaborated space, which we have with Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire as well. So now we're going to just have the public section, which I will ask for an update from Dan as Deb, if you don't mind, please, Dan.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's my pleasure to be here giving this update. It's the first time that I've addressed this meeting since my appointment as temporary DEP in Bedfordshire. So, Commissioner, you have a written report, which I think will be published as well. So I'll make reference to this. I don't intend to go through the report line by line because you've got it in writing, but I will try to provide just some context and some highlights and try and add a little bit of value to the report. So today we're providing an update on priority 5 within your police and crime plan, Commissioner, which everyone will be cited is the priority is the multi-agency approach to community safety and crime reduction, one of your 7 pillars within the plan. The report that you've got in front of you sets out the context to this report, and then I'll draw your attention to section 3 of the report and the table that appears on page 3. Bedfordshire has a really mature and effective partnership landscape for policing and our wider public service organisations. We've tried on page 3 of this paper to set out some examples of partnerships that are working both pan Bedfordshire and then within each of the 3 unitary authority areas of Bedfordshire at strategic, tactical and operational levels. I think it would be fair to say that this is a very well populated area of business. There's lots of partnership groups working across the county, but this diagram doesn't reflect the totality of work that's being undertaken in partnership. This is just our Bedfordshire partnership. I would highlight that there's a number of other organisations that link what we're doing from the very micro community level all the way up to the national. So there's, as you know, you've been out across the region looking at URSU partnerships and our GAIN network and a whole range of other partner organisations in there. So this is just an exemplar of some of the work that we've got ongoing. And then aside from those formalised partnerships, there are a range of other community groups where we seek to engage with both our community and our partner organisations informally. And you were at one of those a couple of weeks ago, Commissioner, a really fine example of celebrating community coming together with public sector organisations and individuals, celebrating the success of that type of partnership work at the Luton and Bedfordshire Community Awards, which both yourself and the Chief Constable were there presenting awards to people. The rest of this paper, Commissioner, has 8 sections within it, giving you a little bit more detail about some of the stuff that's described through that schematic. And I'm not going to take us through each of those sections, but I will try and highlight 4 of those just for a little bit more detail. First one I'm going to start with is the strategic partnership case study, looking at how we tackle organised crime groups, county lines, who are organised Group and County Lines Partnership Board, and the Force Strategic Coordination Board. This is section 4 of the paper. As you'll know, Veru board operates a county dealing with violence and exploitation, and then we have Chief Superintendent Nick Bellingham chairs. Can I just check? Are you frozen? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The Chief Superintendent Nick chairs the Silver Group described in there, dealing with all this crime activity across the county. The mention within there about the bullet point that talks about how we ensure that partnership intelligence and resource effectively coordinated is something Bedfordshire does really well. Having worked across counties of the Eastern region recently and looked at some of the activities that are taking place, I think Bedfordshire activity at a grassroots level to develop our and the intelligence that we're relying on to tackle organised crime is really well placed. Over the last 6 or 7 years, Bedfordshire Police, our partners, have been working to develop the training of not just officers, but all officers and staff within a range of other organisations working ESPs. So we've really invested in training member staff to know what is required to submit intelligence into the police and what format that should be in. And that results now in on basis about 600 to 800 intelligence reports being received from partner organisations in police for our consideration of how we should tackle organised crime and county life within our county. The report also talked at section 1 towards the bottom of that, the penultimate bullet point, at the SOC local profile. Commissioner, as you'll this is a document that's pulled together from a range of data sources, including health, alcohol teams, patient service, YOS, and produces an annual report of what's been happening in the county, what the priorities are, or what we've been trying to tackle priorities in the previous year, and recommendations, partnership, prioritisation of SOC activity. So a very mature, annualised process now, working particularly well. And as you know, Laura, we've discussed success that we've had in tackling organised crime across Bedfordshire, locally as a police force with our partners, county, and using other organisations that have a regional or national footprint, National Crime Agency and OSM. So that covers off section 4 within the report. Section 5 details some of the tactical partnership that we have, an area of priority for us, which is child exploitation and missing. If I can, there's just one paper, and forgive me, I got this at the very last second, where there is mention in the paper of clinical commissioning groups. Commissioner, you're aware that the terminology changed a little while ago, and that should actually be reflected as an integrated care partnership. So where we see clinical commissioning group with paper, it just needs to be reflected. That was the arrangement up until the change of, but it doesn't make any difference to this paper. We've been doing some really fantastic work in partnership with local authorities and those who are responsible for children. And an example that's not contained within brings what you've got in the paper to life is Operation Coty. This was a case that was explored through the CSEM group, and it identified children who were linked by negligence and missing episodes. As a result of the identification of that group of 8 children, the group commissioned additional resources to be targeted through our Force Tactical and Coordination Group. So that was resource looking at intelligence that was available, but also working very closely with children's services across central Bedford Borough to identify what was going on and how we would be able to disrupt the exploitation taking place in that particular case. I'm really pleased to be able to report that as a result of that intervention, all children subject to Operation Compass were subject to additional activity, disrupted their pattern of going missing, improved their safety and provided safeguarding to them. Commissioner, if I move into section 6 of the report, which is county lines, and again, I'm not going to rehearse the paper, but I would to the really fantastic work east of England around county lines. As you'll be aware, county lines nationally through the National County Lines Coordination, and we have a regional coordinator who you have met, DI Kelly Gray. Kelly has been really fantastic at securing grant funding to county lines, and a number of those bids have been focused on Bedfordshire Police. This activity of the County Lines Silver Group oversees the operational implementation of the expenditure of those bids, and we've had some successes in dismantling organised crime groups, county making arrests and safeguarding in relation to that. I'm going to skip over the next couple of areas that I've mentioned in the paper. Very happy to take questions if you have any. With our attention to section 9 of the report, the Local Resilience Forum. Commissioner, I had the pleasure of meeting the Chief Fire Officer last week, Andy Hodgson, from Bedford Fire and Rescue Service, to discuss the Local Resilience Forum, currently the chair, and I think the intention is that I will be stepping into the chair of the Local Resilience Forum if that's a group of partners in the new year. It was a position previously occupied in share between the Fire and Rescue Service and the police. So I think that that's a proposal. Andy and we in partnership have a very plan for financial year 23-24 to ensure that the Local Resilience Forum is able to respond to any civil contingencies or emergencies, major incidents across the county. I've met with key partners within that Local Resilience Forum, either already or got them in the next week, to ensure that we are well linked in. The early feedback that I've had from the partners that I've been out is that the Resilience Forum is fit for purpose and very well with the contingency that we face. Commissioner, section 10 of the report, Operation Encompass, and this Operation Encompass is about improving the of passing reports from the police into schools, informing them when attend school have either been present during domestic abuse situations or reported missing. Operation is just a tactical example of where we, through police data and responding to incidents, have information which actually assist with safeguarding and improving the welfare of children through Operation Encompass, share that information to improve children's prospects when they're at school. Finally, Commissioner, before I pause, the final section of the report, section 11, deals with the police education and diversion team. And if I draw your attention to section 11.5 of the report, because it's quite lengthy, this section, I think it's really illustrative of the work of this team, that in September of this year, the education and diversion team attended 12 Freshers events at the start of this academic year at the county's standalone sixth form education centre, 3 universities. The team was really focused on preventative activity and our priority force of tackling violence against women and girls. So by attending these Freshers events, we were able to provide educative material and support to freshers and new students, issuing 1,500 personal alarms, 3,000 anti-spiking bottle stoppers, and 3,000 anti-spiking stoppers, as well as promoting Polyguard smartphone personal safety with over 1,700 children, those very small number of events just in the month of September alone. And I think it's a real testament to the work of that team that we're trying to add to the community and provide a preventative approach. And the final thing before I pause, Commissioner, mention is in Pillar 7 of, with Pillar 5 of your police and crime plan, you mentioned that we will be working with our local educators, and you made a promise to engage with children at schools by arranging targeted events. It will be a pleasure this evening to join you in the semi-final of the Police and Commissioners debating competition this evening, as part of your commitment to reaching out to schools across the county of Bedfordshire. Commissioner, I will stop. Very happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Dan. That was very comprehensive, and of course, and thank you for not going through every single one of them, because that's how comprehensive it was. So I really appreciate that. Just want to touch base with you on a couple of things here. First of all, with the multi-agency partnership groups, of which there's quite a plethora, and that's they all serve their own functions. I mean, how well are these multi-agency boards working as far as the force is concerned in terms of partnership working, participation, engagement? I mean, how well would you say those are working?
So, Commissioner, I'll have a first stab at it, but for members of the public who are watching this video, and in terms of giving context, I've been working in the county for a little over 2 months. I'll give you preliminary impressions of partnership working with Bedfordshire. Let's open this out to my chief officer colleagues to give you any further thoughts about the partnership. I've been hugely impressed by the energy in Bedfordshire of the partnerships. Just last week, I met the chief exec of Luton Council, and we're talking about how we build on the huge strength of partnership working in Luton. I'm meeting with, as I mentioned earlier, the chief fire officer last week, and again, he was hugely passionate about developing the services that the LRF develop and working in conjunction with policing on a range of issues. For example, forensic fire examination post a potential crime scene which had fire in it. I think the partnership is, or the range of partnerships that you see across Bedfordshire is really strong, really vibrant. And one of the things that's particularly pleasing for me to see is that there is huge community involvement in our partnership. So this is not just a statutory top-down delivery by public service. This is something that we're co-producing with our community, and something that is a real strength in Bedfordshire.
Commissioner, I'll jump in if I may as well. It's probably quite unfair of me to have asked Dan to deliver that paper with 2 months in on a thing which bases on, history and relationships.
Actually,
he's done a good job.
I think he did all right. He did all right. He did great.
He did. And all I would add is that there's a couple of things. Firstly, the partnership landscape in Bedfordshire is actually not that complex, because we've got 3 unity authorities, 2 hospitals, and a couple of trusts involved. We've also, the bit that we've not mentioned strongly here is we have a really good partnership with the third sector and with communities. So, the work that we're delivering at a tactical level in Dallow Cares that we previously talked about on this meeting, that involves the community from the outset and all partners with a collective endeavour to improve people's lives, the locality, reduce crime and reduce demand on other partners. The fact that we know each other, we have each other on speed dial, and those relationships were built up over a pretty extraordinary time in COVID has really served us well. So, I have the privilege of chairing the Chief Exec Forum, which is attended by wider partners and the statutory ones. As I say, third sector, we have a collective endeavour to really dig deep into some real system problems. And it was one of those, that you and I have discussed, is when we find officers waiting a long time with a patient who maybe needs mental health services. That's an example of the system problem, but we've got an agreement. We're going to try and come together and work through those as a collective. In terms of, you know, Sean chairs and sits on a number of PAN Bedfordshire processes, and what I would say is when it comes to safeguarding and looking after children and those kind of things, we know each other, and, you know, on the back of each instance, partners come around the table and work really effectively together to deliver the safety and security of children that live across the county. So I personally think it's, you know, we've got a brilliant starting block of not an overly complex landscape, good relationships where people know each other, and we've got some effective structures in place. And as you know, we've recently come together for a PAN Bedfordshire approach to serious youth violence and drugs, where we've got dedicated funding, where, you know, one of the chief executives is chairing that forum on behalf of all, but all partners are at that table. So that is a good example of something which I don't can be achieved along those lines in a more complex landscape of you know, county councils and districts. So and Sean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, because you sit on a number of other partnership processes, or a fair summary.
No, the only thing I would add to that, Chief and Commissioner, is that has been reflected in terms of inspections, both for us, but within the local authority as well. So, you know, all inspectorate identify that there are really strong relationships at that strategic level. As we've already discussed in several occasions, it's at that operational level which is challenging for all, but we are committed to working together to come up with joint solutions.
Okay, I mean that's great. I mean, I guess I would just want to know. I mean, it's great, and I'm really pleased with the reports and how the force remains committed to being part of that partnership landscape. I mean, that is absolutely crucial, both from a crime fighting point of view, but also from a crime prevention point of view. So I really commend you for that. But do you have any concerns though, in terms of this partnership, multi-agency working, information sharing, for example? Or are there any concerns that you have?
So my reflection on that is, I think we can be better with our data as a system. So I think we comply with all our statutory obligations to share information, to safeguard people. I guess my observation is that's still quite a human process-led manual process where systems aren't joined up. And what I'd like us to work towards, which will take time, investment and innovation, is where we can, you know, maintain the security of data, but be able to search across it in a much more powerful way to find answers to problems before they kind of manifest themselves in serious occurrences.
And so in which forum is this being raised, if at all?
So I think it's an ongoing conversation. I think you know that we are embarking on a journey here with our own data. And I think if we can get the use, how we exploit our own data in a really highly effective way, it may be that there's an opportunity there for conversation about how we host data securely and do some of that. So I think there's an element of, there's an absolute willingness around the table. There's definitely a need to share approach now in Bedfordshire, and I think we can do more on that, but clearly it's going to need investment at a time where investment is challenging, but nevertheless we're already on that journey here.
Okay, all right, that's good. It'll be good to keep an eye on this and just see how well this continues to improve over the years. Just to come back to the reports, Dan, I'm really impressed with the work of the education and diversion team. I'm a huge fan. In terms of the numbers in that team, where are we in terms of meeting the full complement that's been assigned, that's budgeted for?
Commissioner, I'm going to look to my colleagues. I don't know the answer to that question, but if my colleagues don't have it, we can get you that answer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
They're encompassed in the community numbers that we're going to come on to, I suspect.
Okay. All right, that's fine. But I mean, quite a tremendous amount of work that they do. Obviously, we've got nearly just over 350 schools in the county, and me having made a commitment to visit all the schools in my first term. I've been told that if I continue at this pace, apparently I will get through to all of them by the end of next year. So I mean, it's really good that they've been able to get to quite a number of schools. Now, it's showing here on page 6 that in the last paragraph, 11.1, that 50% of burglaries and robberies are committed by children of school age, which is quite interesting. Do you know, I mean, does it not explain why we probably need to make sure that we get this kind of activity by this team ramped up and they get into schools?
We're very alive to the fact that the vast majority of crime, and Bedfordshire is not alone in this, so we're quite a young county. So in terms of the proportion of our population that is young, we're higher than some other areas of the country. And we're not alone in experiencing that significant proportions of our crime and disorder are attributable to younger people on average. So we're fully bought into the idea that we need to be working in partnership to prevent activity and provide people with diversionary activity and diversionary pathways away from the criminal justice system.
And I went to visit probably one of the most northern parts of the county yesterday in Wilmington. So it's kind of on the border with Northamptonshire. And one of the things that they raised was they probably see more Northamptonshire police vehicles drive through their village than they see Bedfordshire police ones. But they also did say, though, that they didn't see, they very rarely see much engagement with schools. Might it be worthwhile, if you don't mind, please, making sure that the education diversion team actually get to as many of the schools, especially in the far-flung rural areas, who ordinarily, I mean, they don't have anywhere near the level of demand, of course, that is felt in some of our urban areas. I get that, but I think that kind of engagement with the young people, they've got obviously a lot of the issues with antisocial behavior, damage to church buildings. I had one person report to me yesterday that on Halloween, on trick or treat night, they had a dead deer thrown on their doorstep. Now, this was actually investigated by the police, but they couldn't. There was no way of being able to catch the offenders involved in that. So there was no. They were quite complimentary, actually, of the police and the support that they gave them. But again, a lot of this low-level antisocial behavior issues, again, they think is committed by certain families that are known to them. And I just wonder if maybe some of this intervention by the education diversion team in those kind of spaces in the schools would be beneficial as well.
Commissioner, you make a really good point, and we will certainly redouble our efforts to make sure that we're as visible as we possibly can be in all of our communities across the whole county. Clearly, we are going to focus our resources on the areas of greatest need and threat in line with the priorities that you and we have jointly set. But we will certainly try and ensure that we're providing a service to everybody.
Can I just add, Commissioner, that
Sure.
what we encourage healthy dialogue with our schools. So if the schools reach out to us particularly and they think that
Right.
they've got a particular challenged individual or group of individuals, then that's a good way of going about it, so that we are kind of responding to where we see obvious demand, but also responding to the needs of partners in the spirit of what we've been discussing, for this section of the meeting.
So how is that offer being communicated to the schools?
So every school should know the names of their community officers who occupy those roles. So therefore, they should have a direct ability to reach into their local community team, which has a PC and a PCSO, dedicated to that type of activity. Obviously, they are responsible for more than one school, but nevertheless, they've got named individuals who they should be aware of, because we've deliberately shared that with the schools.
So if I can make an ask, Trevor, given the fact that we do get quite a turnover and movement of staff and personnel in schools quite regularly, it might be a case that some of that information has been lost over time, if it's not something that's being done on a regular basis. Can I perhaps ask that you have this information communicated again to the schools, so they know who the contact will be if they have those kind of concerns? I mean, for example, I'm going to be having a separate conversation with Kimberly. There's some schools who have not heard about the Veru, despite the great work that they do. So again, it's about making people aware of the resources that's available to them as needed. So if you don't mind looking into that, please, Trevor, that would be really much appreciated.
Yeah, we'll take that away.
Yeah. All right. Oh yes, just lastly, the junior police squad. That the very last point on page 8. That is amazing. Phil, you're holding your head. Are you like, oh no, how are we going to pay for this? Is that what you're doing there? Okay. Do you have any update on the junior police squad? I mean, they are so amazing.
Sean, if there's anything you want to add to?
Yeah, all that it's a programme that we run every year, and we introduce it to different schools across the CSPs for those younger age children. So follows on to what you were saying in terms of that engagement. It's not just about preventing crime, but it's that future engagement with young people who they fill that gap, because we lowered the age of cadets. So the natural transition we're hoping for is junior police squad and introduction to policing, building that understanding of what we do. They then transition into cadets, and thereafter have a real interest in joining policing. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you which schools we're currently engaged with in terms of junior police squad, but I can get that for you.
No, I think it'll be a great initiative. I can't wait to see the relaunch of it. And so no, that's brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for that update, Dan. It's very, very helpful to see the level of partnership working across the county, and let's just hope that keeps continuing. Is that it for your section, Dan?
I wasn't going to add any more, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks. Now I'm going to get an update on community policing establishment and model from Sean.
Yeah, some of what Dan's already covered is really focused within the community policing footprint. So you know, Commissioner, we want Bedfordshire to be a safe place for all. And two of the strengths of that are prevention and problem solving. Community teams follow the 7 pillars of community policing, and the focus is really on visibility and engagement across all of our communities. You know that we have a hub model whereby we have dedicated officers at different hubs across the 3 CSPs. But you also will appreciate that at the moment we do have to balance our resources across the whole of the organisation. So we do currently have 10 vacancies at constable level across the community footprint. So that's against an establishment of 67. They are shared across all 3 areas, but we have got plans in place to improve that recruitment to deliver that model. However, right here, right now, our priority has to be our patrol function, so that we are able to attend and deal with immediate incidents where people are facing real danger. The commitment that we have, and you talked about the officers within the education and diversion team, there may be a change in terms of some areas of community policing, but the officers who are dedicated to that team have been there for some time. You know some of them, they've come to the events and they are really well embedded. To support them, we have a dedicated education and diversion coordinator who has that link in with the three CSPs. And I myself sit at strategic level at children boards across all three with education representatives, and they are cited on what that footprint looks like and how to access those resources. In terms of community policing as a whole, how do we deliver that visibility and engagement? How do we make sure we are adhering to the 7 pillars of community policing? We've already talked about some of the initiatives, some of the great work that the team do. And again, they follow this up with feedback from and to the residents within those areas. All 3 areas have events like Coffee with a Cop. They publicise predominantly through Facebook when the next priority setting meetings, etc. are, and they attach to those QR codes which people can get onto beforehand and actively get involved before those meetings. And I did provide a paper that accompanied this with some really good news stories from across all 3 CSPs, and you can see there the engagement with the community. If I pick out just one, and it related to a prolific shoplifter in Leighton Buzzard, and when I look at the comments that follow the post in terms of what the Leighton Buzzard community policing team did, there's so many comments that support from members of the public. Brilliant, well done. But what it also does is it encourages two-way conversation because there's members of the community that highlight that the cost of living crisis is going to have a real impact on these local community teams. So that's why we're dedicated to improve those numbers to provide a better and more bespoke service. If I just run through a couple of other initiatives that we've got across all 3 areas, we've already talked about Dallow Cares in Luton, in Central Beds. Previously, Commissioner, we gave you a case study in relation to Operation Pentagon, which was in Leighton Buzzard. And again, that shows the strength of that partnership working, because there were 12 young people aged between 12 and 16 who were positively dealt with, but positively dealt with in connection with the youth offending teams. So we were really getting to the root cause of their offending and how we can keep them out of the criminal justice system.
Was this, sorry, Sean, was that the one with the kids where they were spraying graffiti all over the place with the other police cars as well? Van, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
There's more fun events within Leighton Buzzard. Our very own PCSO, Rachel Carney, has run a Run Safely campaign, whereby she takes out members of the public and goes running, her own little running club. And that's really well received. And most recently in Bedford, again, we've listened to our communities. We've done some speeding enforcement and drug warrants in Queen's Park area, which got some excellent feedback. And in the town centre as well. We're looking at preventative and prohibitive orders to make sure people aren't begging aggressively. And just the other day, there was a gentleman now who continued and is now serving at Her Majesty's pleasure. So there's loads of good work going on in and around the community footprint. We utilise social media for that two-way engagement, but it's an area that we want to continue to support in order to deliver that service.
So speaking on the engagement, the communications bit, I've raised, obviously you know that I've raised this recently. Now I am aware of some of the excellent work that the community police officers are doing. I'm in contact with them. I see some of what they are doing, or I get to get the reports, some of the outcomes that they're achieving in communities. But this communication is not as uniform as in terms of its effectiveness and frequency as I think it can be, in the same way that the level of information being made available to residents which I raised at the last delivery board around priority setting meetings being on the website. I'm not sure if that has been done yet, but we can catch up on that after the meeting to just follow up on that. Again, that is not uniform. What can be done to try and have some minimum standards, even though I know numbers fluctuate? I just think that we're missing out on some treats here, in terms of making the public aware of what is being done in an area. My experience is that even if somebody is out and the officers did a patrol around their area because they've had reports of drug dealing and stuff like that, if they share that information, when they see that information, they know that, okay, fine, I didn't see the police officers, but it's good to know they came to my area anyway.
Yeah, and what we've done, Commissioner, is we've listened and we've taken positive steps there. So we've introduced the Social Media Academy, and that's exactly to address the concerns that you have, because this is a development program specifically designed for community policing to support the use of social media within their role, so that all teams are using the same type of language, the same type of forum, to make sure that everybody understands what they're doing and where they're doing it. We're rolling this out across the entirety of community policing. So the messages are there. You're right, they may not be consistent, but that's what the Social Media Academy will deliver, that everyone operates in a similar fashion. And that's the fashion which our public will respond to.
And actually, I've got to say, before you come in, Trevor, I will admit that it is better than it used to be. I must commend the officers. I know that, for them, maybe social media is not something that they all want to do. I get that, but we live in an age now where people believe that if I don't see the police officer, then nothing is happening. But the reality is, when you've got 1,400 cops, a population of 700,000, the likelihood of you seeing one in your day-to-day, wanderings around is not necessarily high, depending on which part of the country you live in. But it's just about spreading the message of what they're doing, what they're picking up, giving advice to residents as well. So, for example, I saw one about the Land Rover Defenders apparently being a target of stuff being nicked from them, and a lot of the teams in the rural and central Bedfordshire mainly, they've put out stuff to the residents. So look, if you've got a Land Rover Defender, don't be disturbed if we stop you to do a little check. It won't take long. It's just that it's for your own safety. We've been getting reports across neighboring forces of Land Rover Defenders being targeted by thieves. I think that's just a fantastic bit of policing information to residents, right?
Yeah.
So this is where I think we the force, some of the officers can actually do a little bit more. Trevor.
I was just going to come in on the sort of on the back of that, only because you and I have had conversations on this earlier in the week, in terms of it does provide great reassurance to the public when they see what officers have been doing. And it's a good way for both officers and staff to provide information, not just about what they're doing, but what the public need to look out for, as so it is a combined effort of those, it is part of community policing to be to kind of demonstrate the visibility of what we're doing. I think we both agree that this is going quite particularly well in Bedford right now, in terms of the team there being quite good at promoting the work that they're doing, and we'd like the other two areas to kind of follow that lead in many ways. I just want to reassure the public that all three areas are doing some fantastic work. We're just talking about the kind of visibility of that in, particularly by use of social media and other communications channels. There's also a role for the force to be helping them with that, as Sean's talked about, in terms of providing the skills, but also we've got comms department. So there is that, what we're doing on the ground, but also the information we share with public, particularly in relation to fraud, which we keep seeing new methods of targeting people, and we can provide, the best defense against that is awareness. So we are going to focus on that and make it, so it's right that we track that through this board. so that we can see that happening. And obviously there's other brilliant work going on across the county by other teams that we'll want to highlight as well.
Okay, that's really good. Just for an action log as well. Can you just add? Is Gemma, you on this call? Yes, you're. Just as an action log, can you please just have on as an action log for next meeting the populating of the community police pages for policing priorities, priority setting meeting, sorry, which I think we discussed last month. I've actually forgot to check on that, but it would just be good so that the teams are able to have a bit more time to populate those pages with the priorities as well. That would be really good. Just lastly on agenda item number 10, I think we might have spoken some time ago about this. Is it Track My Cop or something like that? Being able to have a visible report, not just a social media one, of course, of patrol routes that some officers have done. Was that something that is still being worked on?
Yeah, so I think.
Okay.
Wayne's
Okay, Wayne.
Sorry, Phil. Thanks, Commissioner. We have access to that data now, Commissioner. We've been working on that with the force. We are just looking now about how we can release that data, but the data is available to the office now. Okay, thank you. And of course, that would be a retrospective thing rather than a a real-time thing. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's good. Well, do you have any idea when we could get that out? Maybe in the new year or something moving forward? Or would it be a week after or a month after? How will that? When do you think we can get that done? Right. I think the new year is absolutely possible, and it will be early new year. That data is available to us. It's just about how we package that and publish it. Okay, so we've got a good lead time then. That's fine. You see, I don't do surprises, Trevor. You see.
Yeah, no, we have been talking about this for a while. It's something we want to do. We've just got to make sure. We deliver the right information, because obviously we're focused on only 10% of the organisation. That's the bit we have to remember, because there'll be a lot of other resources that won't feature as part of that. So we'll always have to add that value to it. I understand. Now on agenda item number 11, I would like to have an update on the special constabulary and recruitment, please. Now, one of the commitments that I made was around neighborhood specials, which is effectively people who live in a certain area, they apply to become special constables, and they will be allowed to stay and police their area if that's what they choose to do. What is the update on that, Trevor? Sean, I'll answer that, and then I'll let you deliver the main update if that's all right. I guess just on the specials, in terms of wanting to be in their own area, that's fine for them to express that interest, because we've just been discussing, we've got community teams across the county who are responsible for geographical areas, and a large proportion of our special constabulary are aligned to our community hubs. But what they do have to do when they join is go through all of the training, etc., to be an effective independent special constable. And to do that, you can't necessarily go to one specific area and be posted there. You need to come into the busy mainstream part of the organisation, become competent, get all your training, and then at that point that expression of interest can be fulfilled. Because obviously if someone says, I want to work in Sandy, that's the bit I've got knowledge of. Ultimately, where we can align them to the team that covers Sandy, but they need to go through those steps first. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be there is no special route, as it were, or shortcut, because there would be a full-fledged police officer with police powers, and it's quite right that they have all the necessary level of training that's required for them to do what they need to do. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to give you the updated numbers, Commissioner.
Okay, yes.
And some of the plans. So currently we've got 91 special constables, 82 are at that constable level, 4 sergeants and 5 inspectors, and that's come as a streamlined process that we completed. You know, we've streamlined the focus of specials so that there is the vast majority who are actively deployed within the core areas, and that split is with 39 of those are aligned to the community teams, 15 north, 24 in the south. There's 47 of those that are aligned to the patrol function, 30 in the north and 17 in the south. And then, as you know, we've evolved the scheme to have pathways. So we have 2 that work within the crime function, and we have 3 that work within roads policing.
Oh, brilliant! So we've got specials now that are not doing specialist roles, basically.
Yeah, that
is fantastic.
Yeah. So we've got 5
Brilliant.
on there already. Where we have seen, and again, part of the streamline element to it, over the last 2 years, we have had 74 resignations. Now, some of those have been to join policing as regulars or police staff. Some of those have left because they didn't align to our culture. And you know the push that the chief and his predecessor have had on building the right environment and the right culture. And they didn't align to those, so they have left. But what we have now is, in terms of those who are with us and those who are operationally deployed, of those 91, 79 are operationally deployed right here, right now. And in terms of a percentage uptake, that's fabulous.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the national picture, it does not even come close to that.
And that's because of the dedicated work. We've taken some tough choices, and we've dedicated a sergeant specifically to look after and work with the specials. And
is that Susie?
Susie Carr does some brilliant work.
Yes, Susie Carr, yes.
And so the next stage is to increase those numbers, but that will come gradually. And what we do is our recruitment window is open all year round. And so as and when we get the right numbers through, we can deliver that training and get them into our establishment. So at the moment, we've got 23 in the recruitment process at different stages. And then once we've got a sufficient number at the right stage, we will then have a recruitment. We'll have a cohort training. And what we also do is we don't just do that in-house. We'll combine that, if the numbers are right, with Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire as well. Because now we've got the right culture, the right people, we can grow that, and they will be part of that latest culture. And
so how many do we need to have?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, how many do we need to have? Do you need to have in a cohort before you start the training generally?
Well, again, that depends, because we run the training. That's in-house. We probably like to have around about 20 to make it value for money, because it's done at weekends predominantly. But like I said, those 23 are at different stages. So once we get to a number that we can run a cohort, we will do so. And what we've also seen is previously the dedicated hours was probably just under about 2,000 hours. And we've seen that slightly increase. In October, we had over 2,100 hours delivered by our special constabulary, and that was up from September. So we've got the foundations now. We've got the interest. Now it will just flourish.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And also, Trevor, thank you very much for taking the time to go and meet with the special constables a couple of weeks ago. Do you want to just give a quick update on how that went, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, my bit of it was a small part really. The important part of it was that, on the weekend we had all of those specials that Sian's, or the majority of them that Sian's just mentioned, here for a half-day training session, because it's important we provide them with continued professional development. So it was a nice opportunity to go in and see them all in one place at one time to say thank you for what they've delivered, because actually they were a great support to us throughout the pandemic. And in fact, some people, because, perhaps being on furlough and those kind of things, gave an extraordinary amount of hours. In fact, You know, we've got 4 people delivering more than 1,000 hours a year as individual special constables. And in fact, you know, one of the people there has done more than 30 years in that role. So this is actually an incredible commitment. What fundamentally are volunteers who put themselves, you know, unsociable hours, etc., on top of their day jobs and take time from their families to support Bedfordshire Police. So we're really grateful for that. It's just a nice opportunity to say thank you to them and answer some of their questions.
And I think this is one of the, you know, the highlights for me anyway, in terms of the change that have been made within the force and the outcome that it's had. Obviously, there used to be, you know, more than double this number of specials about a year, 2 years ago. But the number being where it is, the contributions actually is about the same. And I think it's, if not more actually, you know, per capita. And I think it's good. I'd rather we had smaller numbers, but better output than have huge numbers and few of them, you know, doing the hours. So I think I think you've got the strategy right here, and I fully support this. So is there still there's still an ongoing recruitment drive for specials? Okay, that's good. And then obviously I'll see if my office can do whatever it can to help push that as well, and also within the town and parish councils as well, because they ask about these all the time, so we can push this through to them. Okay, that's brilliant. I think that's everything I wanted to ask about the special constabulary and recruitment, and I think it's really good as well. I'm really pleased to hear about the specialist routes being made available as well. So that's really fantastic. And then number 12. Agenda for next meeting, unless I've missed anything else. On the recruitment, is that the recruitment for the special constabulary, Sean, that you were talking about, or general recruitment for police officers? That was for specials, yes. Yeah, special, yes, that's right. Okay, so next agenda for next meeting is mostly going to be on the estate strategy, which is a big one. We need to get something to the police and crime panel in due course. We're also going to get an update from the Chief Constable from the Police and Crime Panel, so we'll be able to update on that. And then there's the NUP data gaps, what the force are doing about this. What is NUP?
It's your agenda, Commissioner, so I've got to ask Katie, because
Katie, you're the genius on this one.
The national uplift figures and giving
okay.
an update regarding that.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm used to it being called PUP, you see.
Yeah,
police
so we.
So you totally threw me there, Katie. So you made up your own acronym there. Well done. Very good.
Sorry if there was a typo on the agenda, Commissioner. Sorry.
It might stick. It might stick. Nope sounds better than pop, I suppose. So there you go. Okay, well, look, thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions and for the updates as well. Really appreciate it. And keep up the good work. Thank you very much. See you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bye-bye.